I do get, in my mind anyway, intellectually, I do get that my ego is not going to get rid of itself, or that my sense of self is not going to do anything about my sense of self. I get it in my mind, but I'm so attached to trying, various things, like you were describing, this step, that step, that it's hard to just kind of let it be, The first step is be aware. How to more frequently be aware, How to learn to let it be, In my mind, I get that coming from awareness is different than coming from a sense of self. But my sense of self is so strong, I guess, or it so runs me that there's not that many gaps, for where now I'm just aware of what's going on instead of being caught up in what's going on. And so the sense of self doesn't want to die, so it's not going to help me out. Just wait and see if it ever, see if it happens, or ultimately I'm going to become more aware, or how do you get in there, and kind of wake up more often, or wake up ultimately. And if it's not my sense of self that's trying to do that, trying to change myself, where does the opening come?
How do you experience the sense of self? What does it feel like? What thoughts are happening? What feelings are happening? How do you feel it in the body when you experience the sense of self? What is the experience of the sense of self to you?
Usually I feel stressed. My body is stressed, and usually I'm busy, and I'm addicted to being busy and doing and helping, and I keep trying to change that. But I just keep getting swept up in stuff. Stressed? Yeah.
So that's an aspect of that sense of self that you're referring to? You feel it in your body, in your chest, in your stomach, in your neck. When you're experiencing being caught up in the ego self, you notice a very busy thinking mind?
Yeah, also emotionally. I feel, impatient, that I'm caught up in this whirlwind, and, it feels like I'm compelled, that kind of stuff.
So you experience it mentally and emotionally, the sense of ego self?
Yeah.
The very active mind, and emotionally you feel those feelings?
Yeah.
So there's a thought story and a sort of an emotional story going when you feel that sense of ego self. You're aware of that?
When it's happening, I'm not noticing that I'm aware of it, I guess.
Sometimes you are.
Sometimes, yeah.
So you're aware of that experience of ego self in terms of mentally and emotionally. And you're aware of that occasionally when it happens.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how you experience the self, is a lot of mental and emotional activity and sort of mental and emotional stirring. And you're aware of that from time to time. Now, you can look at anything on the table, a candle or a bottle or anything on the table. Pick an object and be aware of it. Notice the color, notice the shape. And you can imagine, if you could pick it up, the weight of it or the temperature of it. So you can see the colors and the shape. You can imagine how it feels. You feel the weight of it. And if it's edible, you can imagine the taste of it. Or even if it's not, you can see what it looks like, you can see the colors, you can see the shape, you can imagine the weight of it, holding it in your hand, you can imagine the temperature of it. And maybe even the taste of it, or the sound of it if you were to strike it on the table. How would it sound? So you can be aware and imagine what it's like to experience that object. Completely. And now you can be aware of that which is aware of the object. So you're aware of that object now. You're aware of how it looks. You're aware of the colors, the shape, the weight, the temperature, the taste. You're aware of that object. Notice the fact that you're aware right now. There's awareness of that object, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
So notice that awareness now. It's awareness that's aware of an object. So you know all about the object. Now notice the awareness. You can also notice this awareness is fully aware in addition to the object. You're also aware of the sensations of your body now. So you see the object, you can imagine the object, and also you're aware now of the sensations of your body. You can feel the energy of your body now. So there's awareness of the sensations of your body now. You can notice this awareness. That's aware now. So you can continue to notice this awareness. You're aware right now, aren't you? There's awareness here now. And now you're aware of being aware. There's awareness here now, and you're aware of being aware. The attention of awareness can go back on itself and realize, yes, there is awareness here now. And you may notice a natural relaxation response, being aware. The objects of awareness are dependent on awareness, being aware. Now this ego experience that you're referring to is like the object on the table that you chose. This ego experience that you're referring to is like the object on the table. The sense of me, the sense of ego that we all know so well, that we're all aware of, is another object that we're aware of. Even the most contracted sense of ego, the most contracted sense of me, the feeling of me, is another object that happens in awareness, just like the object on the table. One object seems personal. The ego experience seems personal. It's a personal experience that I am aware of, that you're aware of. And the object on the table seems impersonal. But notice how the awareness that's here now is neither personal nor impersonal. It's simply present and aware. Just like you can let the object on the table be. It may be easier initially to let an impersonal object be as it is. But you may notice that it becomes easier and easier to let the ego sense be, that personal sense of me. You may notice that it gets easier and easier to let that ego sense be, because you may realize that even the most contracted sense of me, even the most contracted sense of ego, is an impersonal experience that's happening in consciousness. Because no one has an ego. An ego is an impersonal object that's happening in awareness. So this is the power of letting it be. No longer being fooled. No matter how convincing, no matter how seductive the ego may appear, you may notice it gets easier and easier to let the ego be as it is, realizing even the most personal sense of ego is equally impersonal as the object on the table, because no one owns that sense of me. There are not two egos, one ego who has an ego. There's one. And there's one awareness that you are, being aware of all objects. Some objects appear to be personal, some objects appear impersonal. But you may notice that all objects are happening naturally and spontaneously. And the common ground of all experience, both personal ego experience and impersonal objects, are happening naturally and spontaneously. And the common ground is this aware presence that I am. And this may become more and more obvious as the old habit of contracting around objects and personalizing them dies. This ego experience has happened in the human experience. No one has created an ego. The ego experience happens like everything else. So as you come back more and more, the ego experience is naturally released, the same as the object on the table is naturally released. All objects of experience are appearing and disappearing naturally and spontaneously. And the common ground of all experience is this aware presence that I am, that you are. So as the old habit of grasping on to the personal experiences is released, a new habit naturally forms. And that new habit is to simply be as you are, present and aware. And it becomes more and more obvious to you that simply being as you are, present and aware, you may notice a natural relaxation response of the mind and body. And you may feel comfortable saying that you know yourself as this aware presence, and you know it as the love that you are seeking. Because it becomes more and more obvious to you that this aware presence that you are is everything that you are seeking by trying to manipulate and control the objects of experience. So as the objects of experience naturally release, both personal and impersonal objects of experience are naturally released, and let them be as they are. This aware presence becomes more and more obvious in your own direct experience, even now. There's awareness here now that is absolutely complete. And in knowing yourself as this awareness, you may notice a natural relaxation response of the mind and body. Because the mind has found what it's seeking. The mind is seeking for peace, for love, for contentment, for well-being. That's why the mind is trying to control and manipulate objects of experience. It wants to deliver peace, love, and contentment to you. So noticing yourself as the source of peace, love, and contentment, this aware presence here and now, there's a natural relaxation response of the mind because the mind has found what it's seeking for you, and it's yourself. So this happens naturally and spontaneously, just like you'll naturally go to a water faucet when you're thirsty, through no effort of your own. When thirst arises, you'll naturally reach for the water. When the desire for love, peace, and contentment arises in you, you naturally turn to yourself. This aware presence that's with you as you right now. So this happens naturally and spontaneously through no effort of your own. In fact, as you feel any desire to take action or to create effort, you may notice that simply by being aware of that desire to take action and to do effort, you may notice that it releases on its own. Because it becomes more and more obvious to you that no action is required to live in peace. So there's a natural relaxation response of the mind and body, and you can feel it now.
One of the things that really struck me in what you were saying was that we didn't create the ego. I somehow feel like it's my fault that I have an ego. You know? Like, I need this sucky ego. And it's up to me to get rid of it. Or to
it's quite a relief to realize that the ego experience that is probably the most contracted human experience, the sense of me, is happening naturally and spontaneously by no ego and to no ego. There is no one who has an ego. There's no separate ego who has an ego. It's a division of mind. The mind says, I have an ego.
Right.
So we see the insanity of this false division of mind and realize that even the most contracted sense of personal ego is happening naturally and spontaneously as an object in this aware presence that I am. This aware presence that I am is not an ego. It's simply present and aware. So this contracted sense of ego is happening in this awareness that I am. I am that which is aware. And that which is aware of everything equally. It's aware of a simple, impersonal object on the table, and also it's aware of a personal, contracted sense of ego. Now, the contracted sense of ego is a little more complex because it involves thoughts, emotions, sensations. So it's sort of multi-dimensional in terms of experience, whereas, and this is too, but it's much, much easier to categorize it in terms of an experience compared to an ego experience. However, you may notice that which is aware of a simple impersonal object is the same presence of awareness that's aware of the sense of personal ego. So the sense of personal ego is happening to this aware presence that I am, that is not an ego. There's something aware of ego. There's something aware of an impersonal object. The common ground of both experiences is this aware space that I am, this consciousness that I am. So what I am is aware of the ego sense. And the ego sense is an experience that happens in me. And an impersonal object is an experience that happens in me. I am that which is aware. You can see why the fundamental truth is that awareness is what I am, or consciousness is what I am, and consciousness is all there is. And knowing myself as this fundamental truth, this aware presence, all objects of experience are experienced in a new light. All objects of experience are happening to this consciousness that I am. I am aware of all experiences, both impersonal objects of experience and personal objects of experience. But I am beyond both. All experience is dependent on me. I am aware. I am present and aware. This is the fundamental truth of what I am. And you know it experientially because you are present and aware here and now, always now. And all objects of experience arise in you. They come and they go. The ego experience comes and goes. Just as objects, impersonal objects come and go. They're always changing. So the sensations are always changing. But you, when you say I refers to this aware presence that I am. Now notice this aware presence that you are. And there's a new perspective on all of the objects of experience. There's a new perspective when emotions arise, when sensations arise, when the ego, even the contracted sense of ego arises. There's a new perspective on it. There's no longer a division. There's no longer, I am an ego over here and I have it. Get rid of my ego, which is a false division. There's no I who has an ego. There's no two. There's this aware presence that I am that is experiencing the discomfort of the contracted ego experience. I am present. I am aware of that. That comes and goes. But I am always the same. The objects come and go. The impersonal objects come and go. But I am always the same. So this is quite a relief to realize that the most contracted sense of ego, even the most contracted sense of personal ego, is an impersonal object happening in this aware presence that I am. There is no ego who created an ego. There is no ego who needs to get rid of an ego. The ego experience happens in the human experience. And it becomes more obvious that when this false division of I have an ego, I am an ego who has an ego, when that false division is seen through, because when there's an I ego who has to get rid of my ego, do you see that it's impossible? I have to get rid of my ego. I have to get rid of my ego. See how it keeps it going? So anything that I do to get rid of my ego, it's impossible. I have to get rid of my ego. I have to get rid of my ego. So we pull the plug. We pull the plug on that ego who has to get rid of itself. No more. No more dividing myself internally. No more going to war with myself. Trying to kill my ego. So this is the power of let it be. Because it's happening naturally and spontaneously already anyway. The ego is happening by no one and to no one. And you know yourself as this aware presence. And this aware presence, you'll notice, has the attributes that you want. If you're able to get rid of the ego. Why do I want to get rid of my ego? Because I want to live in peace. So you notice by being aware that you already are and letting it be, which the ego already is, so you're not doing anything, it pulls the plug on the egoic mind of, I have to get rid of my, no more false division, no more internal war, no more going to war with myself, against myself. You're going to war with yourself. Now the mind means well. It wants to bring love and peace to itself, and it wants to bring love and peace to the world. That's why this ego wants to get rid of itself. But you see that it keeps the war going. Complete surrender pulls the plug on the ego, and you know yourself as this aware presence. And it may become more and more obvious to you that this aware presence, you may feel comfortable saying that what I am, this aware presence, it is love, it is peace, it is contentment. You may notice that. And then the false division naturally, this is bullshit. I have to get rid of my ego. Who has to get... When there's no ego trying to get rid of itself, there's a natural relaxation response. And this unconditional love that I am loves even the ego sense. This aware presence that we are is simply present and aware. It doesn't have the capacity to go to war with itself. So there's a natural relaxation of the ego sense. And the ego sense becomes another object, another simple object in awareness that's happening naturally and spontaneously. It happens naturally and spontaneously, and it releases naturally and spontaneously. And it becomes more and more obvious that there is no independent me who's doing anything, that everything is happening naturally and spontaneously. Even the sense that there is an independent me, because you say, well, I feel as if there is an independent me who's doing everything. That sense of being an independent me who's doing anything, even that is happening naturally and spontaneously, by no one and to no one. There's no separate me who's creating the sense of a separate me. There's the experience of a separate me that happens naturally and spontaneously. So I realize anything that I do to get rid of my ego is keeping it in place. It's an impossible venture. Even if the ego says, well, I'm successful. Now there's an ego who has gotten rid of its ego. I did it. Who did what? So it becomes more and more comical, the movement of mind. As you step back and be aware of everything that's happening, and notice that which is aware. So the attention goes on that which is aware, and letting the objects be. And it becomes more and more comical how the mind divides itself up into separate egos who are going to war with itself. All a false division of mind. Meanwhile, you've always been aware, watching the whole show, as you're aware right now. And now you know the fundamental truth of yourself. This aware presence is what I am, present and aware. And you've seen the false ego sense. You see through it. It's seen through. but you notice a palpable change in your experience. There's a natural relaxation response when the mind is no longer going to war with itself internally. Do you realize the degree to which your own mind is at war with itself? Can you imagine the peace that you feel when this mental and emotional internal war, when there's a surrender that happens because the mind realizes its own mistake? It realizes that it was searching for peace and love and contentment in the objects of experience and for the ego. Whereas the peace, love, and contentment, you may notice, is a naturally occurring phenomena that requires no doing. So the mind and the emotions naturally relax on their own because they've discovered what they were seeking. The intention of the mind is good. It wants to bring you love, peace, and contentment, and it wants to share love, peace, and contentment with others. So when this mind realizes that which is aware, here and now, always with you as you, is the source of love, peace, and contentment, then the mind naturally relaxes. There's a natural relaxation response of the mind and the emotions in the body because you've found what you're seeking. So there's a natural release. So now you can relax and enjoy the show.